Hey, like I start out all the time, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. If you like the way any of the topics, subjects, or information, is being broken down, analyzed, discussed, reviewed, recapped, any of that, do me a favor, hit that like button, share the content, leave a comment. I would love to rap with you about any of this stuff, so on and so forth. But this could be long, so let me jump right into it. I am talking about The Five Bloods, a Spike Lee joint, 40 Acres and a Mule. You know the whole Spike Lee theme and all of his signature stuff that we've all been watching for a long time. And shout out to Spike. I'm not, I had a comment with Spike online. It was an innocent comment, and it went really wrong with him for no reason. Like it was totally not necessary, and it kind of messed me up. It wasn't even. It didn't even need it. People can misunderstand or misconstrue comments online, and all I was trying to do was get a brother some credit, and he went off to the side with it. So, but that's neither here nor there. Shout out to him because the whole scene that when I was in high school when Radio Raheem was killed in Do the Right Thing. I got this poster up here in my room. It's on a lot of my videos. And how does something you did 30 years ago, and it might as well have come out last week. It could come out next year. It could come out the year after that. It still applies. So shout out to him for doing his thing. I like Spike. I'll get into some of that in a minute. The film is about takes us back to the Vietnam War with these five individuals, the Five Bloods. The big theme here is that they're going back to Vietnam to recover some gold that they buried that was part of a mission that they were sent out to take care of, or they were assigned, and things went awry, and they buried it, and then the area was hit with Agent Orange or whatnot, and then like I said, they went back to, they were going to go back to retrieve it. It's kind of the gist of it. So these older guys, I don't know how, late 50s, early 60s, they're going back over there to get this gold and to bring it back and do what they need to do with it. Chadwick Boseman, Stormin' Norman, plays the lead character posthumously, and we learn a lot of like the moral compass of the movie and this band of brothers through his character. Spoiler alerts. I'm talking. I'm not holding anything back. I'm gonna give you what happened. Obviously, he's not pictured here behind me. He's not pictured here behind me. The dude on over here, that brother, the younger guy, that's actually Delroy Lindo, his character's son in the movie. He wasn't with them back in Vietnam, obviously. So you see the other four guys knelt down. They were part of Chadwick Boseman's or Stormin' Norman's unit, and they all looked to him and followed him. He was their leader. He didn't make it out of that mission, and so part of them going back to recover this gold is to do right by him and kind of make peace with how that fell apart, which is a big mystery here that you might not even, earlier in the flick, you don't really know that's a major detail in the in this movie. Now I'm far along right now. Probably lost a bunch of people. I would probably say, man, this is a good 3.5, maybe even 3.75 quarter stars out of 5, maybe even a 4. It's a pretty good movie. And matter of fact, it's a very good Netflix movie. I've been on here before talking about some Netflix movies. Bird Box comes to mind. Uh, that one joint with Michael Pena. I've watched a ton of a decent movie was Triple Frontier with Ben Affleck and Isaac. I can't think of his first name. That one wasn't bad. I just watched the Extraction joint with Chris Hemsworth. It had all the makings of a big time movie, but it was so. Men with guns, sniper rifles, and assault rifles and stuff. But there's a lot of that one joint with I should remember some of these names if I'm going to talk about some of them. Anthony Mackie. It's kind of a futuristic whatever. That one was a little weird. I've seen my share of movies that just weren't that good on Netflix. The joint with Anne Hathaway and Ben Affleck a couple of months ago, horrible movie. The Five Bloods is a solid movie. So that's what I wanted to get into real quick before I would encourage everybody to watch it. So I would probably go because I'm between 3.5 and 4 stars. So I would say 3.75 to make things complicated. But it's a decent movie, solid movie from Spike Lee and how he put it together and everything that I'll get into in just a second. What I wanted to say was right now it says 6.9 on IMDb. I don't agree with that. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it said it's trending a little bit better at 76% from the audience score. The tomato meter has it at about 91%. I think that's about fair, honestly. I know I just said 3 3/4 or whatever. That 91, if it was 91 to 80, 86 to 91, somewhere in there, I think that's about spot on. Getting into let me give you a little bit more of what's listed as the synopsis. Storyline this is on IMDb. From Academy Award winner Spike Lee comes a new joint, the story of 4 African American vets, Paul, Otis, Eddie, and Melvin, who returned to Vietnam searching for the remains of their fallen squad leader and the promise of buried treasure. Our heroes, joined by Paul's concerned son, Jonathan Majors, battle forces of man and nature, while confronted by the last ravages of the immorality of the Vietnam War. Just a couple of quick critics who made comments on the movie. This is on Rotten Tomatoes. Dave Calhoun from Time Out. The Five Bloods is at once knockabout and violent, funny and deadly serious, carved from history and carved from the movies. David Sims from The Atlantic. Lee, in his inimitable way, is prodding his audience to pay attention and realize that even as history marches on, the same battles are still being fought. Anthony Lane at The New Yorker, a history lesson wrapped in an adventure. That's really what this essentially is. A history lesson wrapped in an adventure. The caveat being that history is never done with us and that we struggle to shrug it off our backs. Detroit News. Adam Graham, The Five Bloods Bleeds American. That's pretty accurate as well. One more. Let me see. The Week Cinema Log. Wall Street Journal. Never has a movie matched its moment more remarkably than The Five Bloods, an explosive, eloquent cry of black anguish and anger for this seismic season. Like I said, it could be released. It's a timeless movie. And it also, being that it goes back to Vietnam, it shows us that we're still fighting over the same shit. We're still fighting over the same shit. Years later, all the successful black people, I'm not a big fan of the African American, but all of the successful people, all of the new opportunities, and I'm not saying this ignorant to the challenges, and I'm not in that. Don't put me in the Candace Owens boat. But what I'm saying is, with a lot of people doing so well, we still have that's like the tip of the iceberg. And if you know an iceberg, like 80% or more of the iceberg is below the water. And so, but anyway, I'll come back to some of that in just a second. Check the movie out. So where am I? Let me check my time real quick, because I know people only give you like a minute and a half. So I got to get cooking. I wrote down a couple of things. It opens up with, I wanted to give you the cast real quick. I think that's important. Want to give you the cast really quickly. Why is that not showing up? Okay. Delroy Lindo plays Paul, longtime featured actor in Spike Lee's movies. Jonathan Majors is the younger guy who plays Paul's son. His name is David. Clarke Peters from The Wire and several other shows is Otis. Norm Lewis is kind of he's a lesser known guy, but I'm pretty sure I've seen him before. Norm Lewis plays Eddie. Isiah Whitlock Jr. plays Melvin, also from The Wire. Senator Clay Davis and his signature curse word. That's kind of the main guys. And then Jean Reno shows up as Desroche. Oh, and then Chadwick Boseman, like I said, Stormin Norman. He's also in this thing. So like I said, man, to see that the film, this movie was actually shot over in Thailand. It's some war scenes involved. It's a pretty big effort put forth by Spike Lee, and he delivers. It includes all of Spike Lee's signature stuff. It's a performance scene when the fellas first get over to back in Ho Chi Minh over in Vietnam, and they all reunite. They go out to a nightclub. They're dancing and stuff. Spike is gonna do all of this stuff around, the core of the story. There's tons of Trump commentary. They call him fake bone spurs. These guys obviously being guys who served in the military war, which we know Donald Trump did not, got out of it with some waivers or whatever. I'm not really trying to dig through all that. There are tons of historical lessons and references. Crispus Attucks, that name has probably showed up in a ton of Spike Lee movies. The Boston Tea Party. 1619, that's a new thing that's kind of been tied to COVID-19. Some people are running with COVID. 1619, slaves landing in Jamestown and everything that happened from there. There's some Aretha Franklin references. Oh, Marvin Gaye is in the soundtrack. You know what? I'll hope from this, you know how on the Versus things, a lot of these artists are getting their highest streaming numbers from being on that Versus thing. I would encourage right now in what we're seeing transpire out in the streets and around the country and around the globe. I would really encourage some brothers to go back and listen to Marvin Gaye's album, The Mercy Me. I'm sorry, I don't even remember the name of it. Damn, should have wrote that down. It's on the soundtrack though. There's tons of songs from that album featured on here. I think it'd be a good moment for people to take that project in and hear what Marvin Gaye was talking about, because like I said, so much of it still applies, and it's a really beautiful record that is Mercy Mercy Me is the album. It's really just a beautiful record that covers so much ground. Came out in 1971. Obviously, it's an iconic song on there, Mercy Mercy Me, but the rest of it should be listened to. It should be something that probably should be listened to at least once a year. At least once a year. So that brothers understand what you're talking about now and what you want people to hear and know now. you're not the first one saying it, and you might not even be the best one saying it. I'll get into some of that in just a minute. There's also the mention on here that getting into some numbers, and it's dope how he gets weaves these facts and these points into the story itself. But he says there's a part where I think they use this this radio DJ. You know, sometimes when wars are going on, they use the radio to spread propaganda. And what was coming on the radio or in Vietnam, they had this lady in here in the movie when they do the flashbacks, and she's coming on. She speaks English. It's a Vietnamese lady, and there's a general or an officer over her shoulder telling her to read this stuff. But she says that, you only account for black people. You only account for 11% of America's population. Do you realize that you account for 32% of the forces of the troops that are here in Vietnamese? Do you not understand that this is not your fight? This is trying to tell these guys to lay down their guns and why are you doing this? And there's also a message in here between the remaining Bloods that the black soldiers were put up on the front line. And I read something about that maybe about a month and a half ago. I can't remember what I was reading, but they said that and they made a comment in here that black soldiers were put out up on the front lines. Obviously, a lot of people died of all, black, white, Latino, so on and so forth. So that was they used that radio DJ to make that point, and that creates an interesting moment for the guys, because to understand the unfairness that's going on here, and why are you here? How did you get here? What are you doing here? I'll come back to that in just a minute. So a couple other things that's going on here. Obviously, if they try to get or if they recover this gold, it's a big Foot Locker size container, 2 times as big as what I'm able to show you right here. But if they get this gold, they're gonna need a way to get it back into the country, and so that's where Jean Reno's character comes in. He's a Frenchman, and can help with that type of service, but of course at a premium. He wants 20%, 22% of the findings. They're already splitting this up between the 4 of them. And now with Paul's son here, he wants a share too, which I don't really understand why he would get an equal share when you didn't go through the original reason for them being over there. But that's neither here nor there. But then Clarke Peters' character Otis, he has a woman that he was involved with while he was over there, that he actually has a daughter with, and she is she's like in finance or something, and so they need her to help set up a company to be able to get the cash to be able to move the money from from Vietnam back over into America, where it can actually be they can withdraw the funds and whatnot. So they're bringing in all of these different individuals and all of these hands that have to that they have to further dice up this money. And then the interesting thing is here that the shots that they take that are taken at Donald Trump, number 45, Delroy Lindo is kind of dealing with PTSD and the after effects of war, and he's not kind to foreigners, and I think that's kind of his tie to. He actually comes out and admits to the guys that he voted for Donald Trump, and he actually has a MAGA hat, "Make America Great Again," and he's kind of just driven by. He's living with a lot on his chest. He doesn't really want to be back over. He's not a big fan of being back over in Vietnam and dealing with the Vietnamese people, the locals and whatnot. He's kind of in a bad place. The one thing that I'm waiting for at the beginning of this movie, being a Wire fan, is I suspect that there's going to be a shit from Isiah Whitlock Jr. And of course, they don't disappoint. One thing that gradually unfolds here, you knew it had to be some conflict, you just don't know where it's coming from. And Spike does a pretty good job of throwing some curves at you, at who you might think was involved. And it comes down to, it ends up being a struggle with some Vietnamese gunmen who believe that gold belongs to them. And so they end up, of course, they are double crossed, and Paul is pretty sure that he doesn't know if Otis is in on it. He doesn't really trust anybody. And you're wondering, like, why is Paul bugging the hell out so much? And the reason that you come to find out is, and they mention it several times, that like he was the biggest fan of Storm and Norman, Chadwick Boseman's character. The thing is, when they land in this to recover this airplane that crashed that had the gold in it, and they land in this landing zone, and the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, are attacking them, they get in this shootout. Well, in the course of that, the shootout, they flash back to it throughout the movie, and in the final act, you realize that Paul is the reason why, spoiler alert, Paul is the reason why Storm and Norman is no longer here. And that's why, one of the main reasons why he's so messed up is because he was the reason for their leader, the super soldier, the baddest soldier ever. He's the direct reason why he's no longer there. And so they do have a moment where Paul and Storm and Norman, Paul talks to his ghost, basically. When he's at his worst in the movie, he's turned on everybody. He's turned on his own son. And he's like, F the BS, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to take my share. And he leaves out on his own. And he encounters the ghost of Storm and Norman. And Storm and Norman embraces him and tells him, hey, bro, stuff happens. Accidents happen in warfare. You've been carrying this around all these years, man. Let this stuff go. I'm good with it. What we did together, the lessons that you learned from me, the battles that we fought, that's it. Like, I'm good. I did what I wanted to do. I was a leader. I died fighting, and I'm good. And so that releases everything for Paul. But the unfortunate thing is, the things that he did 25 minutes ago in the movie he's triggered some things that it's coming for him, and he can't fight it all off. And so it's interesting, the people who die in this one, Paul being one, he gets killed by the Vietnamese gunman. And then Eddie, who was who had went off and actually done pretty well for himself, but it was all on bad credit. It was all him using credit. He had a couple of divorces, and they thought that he had decent amount of money to at least fund this trip. And then he comes out, and his message is, as an older man, is he's trying to tell them that money is the root of all evil, basically, and money doesn't really solve all of your problems. You got to be able to really love one another. And one of the funnier moments in the movie is Eddie is pigeon-toed. They introduced this in the beginning, in the opening scene. And when Eddie goes and confronts like the whole group when they're talking about dividing up the money, the gold, what they're going to do with it. Because Storm and Norman wanted black people in their community to get that money and, live with it, make the most of it. But now, the four bloods, remaining bloods, plan to just do what they need to do individually. It's a different day and time. But Eddie holds up the one of the gold bricks, and he goes to back up and steps on a mine, which is another detail that's throughout the movie, because all of this warfare stuff is still over there. These weapons, these munitions and whatnot. For years, they've been saying that these mines and all of that, the remnants of that war are still there. And Eddie, despite being a pretty good guy, he gets blown to bits by by one of the mines. Then the last thing is, I wanted to hit on Storm and Norman forgives. He forgives Paul. And I just wanted to say, like, right now, what I'm watching happen online, some of the different conversations, some of the judgment that I see brothers passing on one another. I love that they included this in here, man, because right now I don't know if some of us can really forgive one another and are forgiving one another and giving each other, latitude to do them and to be them. One thing that I'll come back to that. And then along with waiting for Isiah Whitlock Jr.'s, that's another actor. But along with waiting for whether or not we were going to get his signature the other thing that I was waiting to see is when will we get Spike Lee's signature detail of his movies, which is the rolling scene where either one or more persons are on that damn I don't know what it is. They're sitting on something or standing on something and they're rolling up the street and you see that they're not walking and they're kind of floating, and it happens at the end of the movie when Otis goes back to say goodbye to his daughter, the Vietnamese woman that he knew. She tells him that that's her her daughter is actually a child that was conceived by him with him when he was over there in Vietnam. And so the other thing is their relationships are strained along the way and they eventually split apart. That's when, like I said, Paul turns his back on the other three guys. Well, it's only two remaining at that point, Otis and Melvin. And then David, he even turns his back on his son. And they turned on him because he took a firearm, the only firearm that they had, and Otis had it. And he's just so tightly wound that he actually went to, there's this group of Europeans, French people, who are over there. They're going around the countryside and disarming remaining bombs and explosives and whatnot. And so that's what I initially thought that they were. That's the group that I thought was going to like take the gold off of them once they found it. But that's a little curve that they threw you. But so that's kind of the gist of it. And I'm at like 30 minutes, so people have probably left a long time ago. But I was trying to give you the characters, and where it was filmed, so on and so forth. I apologize for all of that. If anybody has made it that far, like I said, everything that's going on currently is it's still what was going on during the Vietnam era. And you just get to hear these four men talk with how that, how they've made the most of it. Actually, Black Lives Matters it's a group that makes an appearance at the end of the movie, some of the money, since they don't have to split it up with 5 people or 6, it's only Otis, this Vietnamese guy that they had who put in some work for them to help them live. They give him a cut. They go ahead and give the European people trio. There's actually one American that's with them, the group that's disarming the bombs. They give them a cut too for helping out, and then they donate some money, a large sum of money, to Black Lives Matter chapter from the hometown of Storm and Norman. And then they give David, they give him his cut. He's actually a teacher, and he goes back home to continue teaching, learning a whole bunch more. Another thoughtful moment in here is that Paul actually writes a letter before he goes crazy. He loses it and gives it to Otis for Otis to give it to David. And they have an estranged relationship, David, and that's why he showed up. He showed up thinking that this could be a dangerous trip. I may not never see my father again, so he meets him over there, and he's like, I'm trying to make the most of our relationship in case I never see you again. And they have some warm moments before they part ways, but of course once David betrays his dad, because he actually hits him over the head, because he was like, why do we have these French people, why do we have them tied up like that? He's like, Dad, what's wrong with you? And so they actually gang up on him to take the gun from him, so that because they didn't agree with him. But so when they part ways and Paul is now done with him, he does say some harsh things that, well, at the crux of their relationship, at what strained their relationship, what truly fractured it, was the fact that when David was born, his birth killed the mother, which is another thing that we're hearing right now. The disproportionate number of black mothers who don't make it out of delivering, childbirth. So it's all these little bits of information that we've all been talking about the last month plus, at a heightened rate. And these different things, it's kind of, that's why that one writer said what he said. Everything we've been talking about all pops up in this movie. So, and that's kind of the genius of Spike Lee. So I guess what I will do, and I hate that I'm doing it at the 33 mark. Let me write that down. I was going to do a live stream about this, but the one thing here for black people, maybe black people, the sad thing that I continue to see on a daily basis, especially online, is the whole. So I'll try to limit this. So on Instagram, I'm talking the other day, but somebody had a video of the blacks. It was a black army guy, and he is, his unit was brought in to quell the protests, the riots, and whatnot, and the crowd started saying, "I'm black, I'm proud," or whatever. "I'm black, I'm proud." And you can see him saying, he had his visor on, but he started saying it. And so somebody, this whole post on the caption for the post was that this brother is fighting his own people. He's being forced to fight his own people. And what effect is that going to have on him, and so on and so forth. Of course, you get down into the comments section where the real ignorance comes out. And I got into it with one individual who wanted to refer to this man as a slave. And I don't know how you could see a person in a very compromising situation and then further attack them because you're in a better situation, or you're comfortable, or you're not in that in that predicament, and so you from your cell phone can sit there and just pile it on this brother. He's a slave. And we went back and forth, and of course, you know, the person comes back and says, any black person who's serving is already lost, and the same shit I've been hearing for years. You're already lost, and then the cat tried to tell me, that I needed to catch up with him. I needed to read up, and so on and so forth. And basically I was lost too for expecting him to have some compassion for that man, because you obviously don't even really know what led that brother to be in that particular situation. And I was like, we don't even got to get into calling each other names and whatnot, and disrespecting one another. I just asked that person, I can't tell if it was a male or a female, because it was the account was melanated _ something. But I said, we don't even have to go back and forth with one another. Are you hiring? Can you provide that brother and his family, if he has one, with $50,000 to $75,000 a year with benefits? Can you feed him and allow him to have a livelihood being employed from you? That's at the end of the day. Because, and I'm not defending this brother because I served. I did my 4 years in the Navy. That has nothing to do with it. But what I'm seeing right now is to attack somebody and deeming them as not being as black as you, or not as woke as you, or whatever. You don't know the circumstances that led that man to be in that uniform. And my point is, everybody who is in that uniform has given up the rights of, their own life for this cause, whether you like it or not. That person made a decision for themselves. And he might have had a family, he might have had a child out of college, out of high school. It's a myriad of reasons of why an individual or black man or black person would go and enroll in the armed forces. And in doing so, it does not hurt any other black person. For any black person to go and enroll and serve, it has absolutely no impact whatsoever on anybody else. Definitely not blood related. That's not blood related to that individual. And it's a thing that, like, the silver lining here or whatever is that if I'm in my uniform and you aren't in uniform and you feel how you feel, we probably don't have nothing in common anyway. There's no reason for us to even talk to one another along a lot of lines. Being that I'm in this uniform, I am what I am, and I made a decision for me. And so anything that you would think about me, or any comment that you would aim or direct at me, is really a waste of you. Like, what you think about me is none of my damn business. That brother isn't there getting ready to attack his own people, who he is serving under at this particular time with 45. Commands and decisions that he made led to that brother being deployed there to do that job. And he's simply doing his job. And if he does not do his job, there are repercussions. And he's accepted all of that based on the fact that he's there. But again, brothers are feeding their families. Me, the 4 years that I spent in it, and a buddy of mine, I just talked to him last week, he did 22 years. You know, he did 18 more years after me and him parted. Actually, he was in before me, so he might have done 16 and a half, 17 years after we parted ways. And now here he is, 46 or 47, and maybe even 48. I'm not sure, but he's retired, getting that retirement check. He's got some health care benefits and whatnot, and now he has he has a job, you know, some government job, making a decent amount of money. He's in IT, and he's doing his thing. I think he has like 5 or 6 kids or something, but he's not asking anybody for help. He's not one of every, what is it? 1 out of every 3 brothers is some ungodly number. He's not contributing to the prison population. He's not out. And this is the thing. We talk about a brother for being in a uniform. We will comment on a brother wearing a uniform and serving. But we won't get all vocal about the dope dealer, the gang member. We have people now, free Chapo. We got people out here, free Meek, free Big Meech, free Meech. Every week is some new dude that we're talking to, and now this is kind of Candace Owens light. But I'm saying, we'll sit here and lash out at a brother for minding his own damn business and trying to make the best out of his situation. But these rappers sitting here and encouraging people, glorifying gang violence, street violence, street life. We hail all of them. We lift all of them up. You almost as screwed up to go volunteer to be a rapper and to launch a rap career. How was that more honorable or redeeming than the brother or sister who goes into the service? It might be some dudes that was facing a small sentence or 10 months in jail and had the opportunity to go into the service, and he went into the service or something. I don't know, but I'm just saying, it's easy to sit here behind these keyboards and on these devices and tear down other people and take these big stances and puff your chest out when what you did might have worked for you. And like I said, if this melanated underscore whatever, do you have are you hiring? Can you hire the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters that serve? Can you give any one of them a job? If not, then shut the hell up and mind your damn business. And this becomes a large argument in this story, I would imagine, because there's some of the things that happen, even when Paul kills Storm and Norman, that's probably the situation. Well, that's what you get for serving in the military, or your black ass shouldn't have been, some of the ignorant stuff. Some of the different comments between these guys as they're reminiscing, and whatnot. Somebody on along the same lines of melanated underscore whatever is sitting there. Well, you brothers, that's what you get in. You should have expected all of that anyway. But they did what they had to do based on that time and day when they made that decision. And again, they're not sitting here crying to you for help. They're doing what they need to do. And then lastly, looking at everything that Paul is carrying, the fact that he comes out and says he voted for Trump and admitted that to these other brothers, and they get into mental health. That's another hot topic that we talk about. I'm writing a little note down. But the mental health thing. And now we're a popular discussion now is that being black in America or growing up in some of these impoverished areas, the inner cities and whatnot, and dealing with racism and systemic racism for long periods of time. Now, there's a thought out there that there's some mental, there's some effects from that. Maybe. But I'm also saying it's some unnecessary stress that's put on the individual. Right now, if you watching what's going on right now, as a black person, it's a million plus causes that you should be taking a stand for right now. It's a million plus different things, topics or fights or causes that you need to be lockstep with the other 1,499,999 other people. You can never go out on your own and have your own opinion or disagree or say anything to the contrary across all of these different causes right now. So not only do you have to worry about facing systemic racism, you also have to live your life in fear of self-hatred and hatred from others within the community. Lucky you, huh? I won't get into all of that here, but I did just talk about some of this on my last It's Always Personal podcast. But that's kind of another thing here is that just the lack of respect and love for one another, man. And I mentioned this to my wife's cousin. There's this campaign out there now, all of these black figures and celebrities that are on Instagram taking this picture, with them in like they Sunday best, slightly dressed up, a nicer outfit, and a pose, a real distinguished pose. And it's, I am a black man. Some shit. I support and whatever other black men. I do not tear that. You gotta get in a fucking. I apologize. You have to get in a campaign. You have to get some copy and paste campaign to agree with another brother or accept that another brother has a different opinion than you that's not necessarily harming you or harming others. Somebody had to nominate you, had to tag you and tap you to say, hey brother, say this shit right here. Read this shit. Man, it's some weirdness going on out here, man. It's some weirdness going on out here. Some real weird shit. But how narrow can your walk be if all throughout the work week, most likely for a lot of people, those of us that don't work at Rock Nation, those of us that don't work at Revolt, and whatever, those of us that aren't on the staff of the Breakfast Club, what do you do when all of this part of your day is facing whatever kind of discrimination, that you might face in your workplace, or just not even necessarily that you're facing bias and bigotry and all of that per se, but just if you work somewhere and the diversity isn't there, that wears on a person. I'm having conversations with coworkers now who are like, look, I didn't know. I saw some memes this week. You can't communicate shit to nobody unless it comes through a meme and it makes somebody understand, or it radicalizes somebody the other way. But I'm hearing that now. But you sit here now, you don't get a certain level of comfort in your in your work where you spend 40 or more hours a week. And then on the other half, when you get home in your home life, in your personal life, over here, I just did over there for work. Over here, now I got all of this black shit that I gotta stay stay in step with, and I can't trip up over here. And this is all you got. This little lane right here is all you got to be you. That's kind of strange to me. Shit, you might only have the last 10 minutes of the night before you take your ass to sleep. Might be the only time that you get to really be you. And the 6.5 hours of sleep that you get. That's kind of crazy. That's if you allow some of these dudes to brainwash you like that and to have an influence over you, running around on some of these YouTube channels and these podcasts and IG lives and shit. They can have you out here going through. Not doing that on here. That's why pay me no mind is pay me no mind. Cause I don't owe nobody shit. I don't have to agree and go along. I don't have to fit into no narrative that some cat gave me. Fucking you. What do you know? What do you know? You ever see anybody on here come on here and say I got something wrong? Hey, look, man, I had to come back and do this video. I talked about XYZ. That shit was completely bogus. I had some bad information. I rushed on here to be first. I was in the wrong. You ever seen anybody do that shit? They just write all the time. You write all the time on everything you say. You live in New Jersey. The shit happened in California. You ain't interviewed nobody on the spot. You went on here and talked for 45 minutes on what you would do, how you would have, what you know, what the person did the night before, what they were thinking. When you know everything, and you just sit here. You ever see anybody come back and say, "Man, I messed that shit up pretty bad, man. I was." They never do. They never do. That's what I'm saying, man. Two things you rarely see in this community, man, is forgive somebody else and apologize to somebody else. Shit, you might not even see nobody thank anybody else. It's fight all day long on some of this shit. I apologize for getting on my high horse for my soapbox for a minute, man. I'm just trying to make some sense out of this shit. Thank you to Spike Lee for putting together a thoughtful movie and exploring some of these different things. And maybe that's why on some of this stuff I'm kind of fucked up, because I watch so much art and so much so many movies and television series and stuff, and then you thinking I'm out here thinking that you're gonna run into other sensible people. You'll be able to communicate with people. People will be vulnerable. People will share things. People will see things from they won't have such myopic views and whatnot. People have discernment. People can pick up on bullshit. People will challenge shit. People will walk away from the group or challenge the group. Some of the shit that we saw in here when Eddie was telling them about the money and how money ain't the answer to everything. Like, you don't see nobody in real life say shit about shit to stay in the tribe, to stay in the good graces of others. Shit crazy, man. So again, I'm sitting here watching some of this and seeing everything that Spike Lee and the writers, everything that they did, man. And I think I like it. You know what I'm saying? I applaud them for addressing some of these things. And like I said, the history lessons and the references that are in there. I'm really well. I'm gonna even mention my struggle with Black Lives Matter. Just the fact that it. I just thought it was something that a hashtag or something that people would say. Like that's what I see a black man kill. I would just naturally think, man, we matter. Black people matter. Black lives matter. But now that's a corporation. That's a brand. So now I don't even know if I really want to rock with that. Like I don't know who the hell that is. Merchandise being sold, like cats making money profiting off of people dying. It's like I said, man. It's a lot of causes to take up. It's a lot of shit you gotta have the right. You're expected to have the right position on in order to live right now and be accepted. And I'm just like, man, I'm just trying to go walk with my wife around the neighborhood, man, and mind my damn business, bro. All this bullshit. Anyway, I apologize. Check that movie out. I probably lost people like it's 56 minutes. I probably lost 54 people 54 minutes ago. Oh well. I said I could have live streamed this, but it is what it is. Hey, my name is Wood. You can catch me on Instagram at waterbed_reg REG. Feel free to check out the It's Always Personal podcast, which can be found on Spotify as well as Google Podcasts. I put them in the links to it in the descriptions sometimes, so you can find them there as a starting point, and then check me out on here. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.